Hi guys, Suki here, and today I'll be talking to you about the iPhone 14 Pro line, particularly the 14 Pro I have here with me. And at the very tail end, I'll be wrapping it up with whether it's worth upgrading to or even jumping the Android chip for. The Pro line comes in 4 colors: space black, silver, gold, and deep purple, which happens to be what I got. Features a 6.1 and 6.7 inch display on the Pro and Max variant respectively. There's a new pill cutout which Apple calls the Dynamic Island, and they built out notification animations around it to give it some life. Now, if I'm being honest about the Dynamic Island, I think it's a novelty that fades into the background after a few days of using it. My take on the island design is that Apple still hasn't figured out a way to fit the Face ID sensors under the display of the iPhone without it being visible. Because when you look at the pill cutout, the Face ID sensor is what takes up majority of the space on the so-called Dynamic Island, making it huge compared to the whole punch Samsung and Pixel phones are offering. So what better way to sort of hide it than create animations around it? And I'll give it to Apple. They did a really good job with it, but I see through you, Apple. Another thing about the island is the fact that it now protrudes even further into the screen real estate. I remember when Apple first introduced the notch, how some tech YouTubers changed their aspect ratio from the regular 6:9 to the extra wide one that pretty much touches the notch. Now, I'm wondering if they'll just leave it the same still or change it again, because in the current form, the pill eats into the aspect ratio. The new Pro lineup now features an always-on display, which Apple made sure was different from everything else on the market today. So up until now, OEMs implemented their always-on in a way that all you can see is the time and maybe notifications. Everything else is blacked out. Meaning, when the screen is locked, you know for sure that it's locked. Well, Apple took a different approach when implementing theirs. They made it so that when you lock the screen, it goes dim and the refresh rate drops to 1 Hz to conserve battery. Other than that, you can still see everything on your lock screen, including your wallpaper in full colors. Now, there is no doubt about the fact that this implementation is way better than what's currently on the market, but it also has its downside. See, in my few days of using the always-on display, whenever I glance at my phone, I get deceived into thinking the screen is unlocked even though it's actually locked. This is because the screen dims to a level that's still considerably bright enough, plus you're seeing all the colors and tones in their full form, only slightly dimmer. Also, the always-on display is not always on, if that makes sense. I'll explain. So, there are 3 scenarios the display will turn off totally. 1. When it's in your pocket or bag, which makes sense. 2. When it's face down on a surface. And 3. When you walk away far enough for long enough. Now, with this, I'm guessing it's using some sort of proximity sensor with the Apple Watch. But do I like the always-on display though? Yeah, I absolutely do. Apple upgraded the processor in the Pro versions only to the A16 Bionic chip, which has 6-core CPU with 2 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores, 5-core GPU, and 16-core neural engine. By the way, if you're getting any sort of value from this video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks. Now, back to our video. Apple went really ham on the camera this year, well, by Apple standards, because as you probably know, Apple has never really been on that megapixel count race like other brands. We now have a 48 megapixel main camera, while the ultra wide and the telephoto cameras all maintain a 12 megapixel lens. But this does not mean when you launch the main camera, you get to shoot at 48 megapixels straight out of the box. You'll have to enable it yourself in the settings. Apple did this deliberately because unless you're going to be launching a professional editing app to take advantage of the extra megapixel, 12 megapixel is more than enough for an average user. That being said, as an average user, if the 48 megapixel main camera is your main reason for upgrading, don't. Because if enabled and you start shooting with it, all you're doing is taking up space on your phone with huge files. And trust me, I'm talking photo sizes of 60 to 100 megabytes. Just 10 to 20 photos and you've already eaten up 1 gigabyte of space on your phone. How long before your phone starts complaining about storage? Also, if you're a regular user who's used to taking several instantaneous shots on your iPhone and you turn on the 48 megapixel, you'll be frustrated by how slow it is to take a single shot. Professionals who know what they're getting out of the 48 megapixel already know to be patient with the computation that's going on in the background after each shot. Now, this ties into your ability to record really high quality ProRes videos up to 4K at 30 frames per second. But the files are so large that the option is not even available on the 128GB version. With the 128GB version, you can only shoot ProRes videos at 1080p. Meaning, if you really want to take full advantage of the video capabilities of the iPhone 14 Pro line, the base model is not for you. And this smoothly leads into my next point: storage. Why on earth does base model Pro iPhone still start at 128GB when Apple knows that Pro users would certainly need at least 256GB of storage? And this also in turn leads me to my third point, which is probably the main reason why I'm not upgrading to the iPhone 14 Pro line, and that's the lightning cable. So for anybody who truly wants to do serious photography or cinematography with your iPhone, the lightning connection will not cut it. Lightning was introduced back in 2012, and at the time it was really great, especially considering the fact that the connection was reversible, meaning no connection orientation was wrong. But the frustrating thing about it is the fact that it still uses USB 2.0 technology, which by today's standards has an abysmal transfer speed compared to what USB-C and Thunderbolt can offer. Now, what this means is that if I want to transfer my files to my computer after a day of shooting on the iPhone, I would probably have to take a weekend trip and be back to see the transfer finished. I know that's an exaggeration, but you get my point. Also, Lightning does not support fast charging. Yet another feature that has been on Android phones for years but still not on the iPhone. Well, in my opinion, one of the factors I would consider is how much of a generational leap you're making. Say, for instance, if you have a fully functional iPhone 12 Pro, I don't think you need the upgrade because you're not really missing out on much. You already have the squared up design language Apple introduced across their new lines of products, so you're pretty much good on the aesthetics part. Now, if you're an Android user considering jumping ship, what I'll tell you is that you'll be sacrificing the convenience of a more universal USB-C for a proprietary Lightning connection. The EU is demanding that all smartphones shipped within the European Union must have USB-C by 2025. So hopefully Apple switches to USB-C by then. So I would say wait another year maybe, unless of course you've already made up your mind, in which case I would say just go for it. As far as battery life goes, the iPhone 13 and 14 Pro have way better battery than the iPhone 12 Pro, so maybe that's a reason to leap from the iPhone 12 Pro to the 14 Pro. As for me, the terrible battery life on the iPhone 12 Pro would have been enough reason for me to get the iPhone 14 Pro, especially the Max version. But the absence of USB-C on this year's model was a deal breaker for me, and I know that sounds trivial, but other than that, I don't really see anything else I'm missing out on the new iPhones coming from the iPhone 12 Pro. Alright, I think that concludes our look at the new iPhone lineup. Let me know what you think about my opinions. I'd like to hear from you. Please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps with the growth and discoverability of my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.